Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me begin by appreciating this House for being diligent to discuss the issue of revenues being sent to the counties. In fact, Mr. Speaker, if there's a time that when I look at both sides of the aisle, I see quorum, it is normally during this time. And this demonstrates how keen each member is to be able to send money to their counties. Mr. Speaker, a lot of people do not know the work of a senator. They think the work of a senator is to go and build hospitals, to build churches, to build roads, to build schools. This is what the work of a senator is. To be able to develop legislation, put a spirited fight that will be able to send money to the counties. Mr. Speaker, today when I stand here, I'm happy that my county of Narok is getting additional allocation. Excuse me, my paper is here. Shit. Mr. Speaker, I have to look for my paper, but I have to remember the exact figure. If you give me the report, please, I can refer to it. I'm sorry about that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that my county of Narok is getting an additional, I think, 250, Narok is here, 297 million shillings. This is 297 million shillings from the 13 billion that we added during the mediation. So in total, Narok County is going to be receiving 10.6 billion Kenya shillings. Now, here is where the biggest problem is. Mr. Speaker, I was just looking through the pending bills. And I've noted that my own county has got pending bills amounting to almost 6 billion. So the question is, we are here fighting so hard to send money to the counties, but we are accumulating more and more and more pending bills. If, Mr. Speaker, we don't become creative as a House, both the Senate and the National Assembly, we will continue to encourage this fiscal indiscipline in our counties. Mr. Speaker, the total amount of pending bills which is owed by all the counties cumulatively is about 183 billion shillings. If you look at the figure which is owned by the national government, which is around 458 billion shillings, the first question that comes to mind, which we have to resolve as a very serious arithmetic question, is how do we instill fiscal discipline, promote fiduciary responsibilities in these counties so that we end this issue of trade payables or pending bills. Mr. Speaker, I get tired. Every time we come here, we pass legislation. We pass motions. And when we pass those motions, implementing them becomes a heavy task, like you deciding that you're going to go naked and climb Mount Kilimanjaro. It's not going to happen. You know, you'll probably die before you get to the top. So, Mr. Speaker, I have been thinking seriously about how do we solve this problem. And I wish the chair of Budget Committee was here. Because it boils down just looking at the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the Constitution, from Article 212 to 214, on the issues of public debt, the only way that we can instill fiscal discipline in these counties and also the national government is first when we ourselves realize that the money that is owed by the counties, it is not those counties that owe them, it is taxpayers. Because you will have to get money from taxpayers to allocate that money to counties, and then they pay. So this is an issue of public debt. So pending bills in county government is public debt. It makes difficult for small business enterprises to be able to operate. So the most logical thing that we can do, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that my sister, the Vice Chair of the Budget Committee is here, is to look at the PFM Act. Look at the PFM Act and in fact amend Section 109 of the PFM Act. Because this constitution that we have in the country talks about the public debt and what can be charged to the consolidated fund or other funds. In this case, we've got the county revenue fund. So in this case, we need to amend the PFM Act so that we can be able to make sure that when we are now discussing Kara, when we are sending, sending money to counties, we redefine serious accountability. The term serious accountability, we redefine it in the law, such that when the money goes to the counties, the controller of budget shall not release money unless that money is going to clear those trade payables or those pending bills. That is the only way that we'll be able to have fiscal discipline in this country. If we don't do that, Mr. Speaker, we'll end up being in debt, people will continue committing suicide, county governors will continue lining their pockets, buying choppers, doing whatever they do best, living a life that they would never otherwise live, because we are encouraging it, Mr. Speaker. From that side of the aisle, I can see we've got about maybe 10 or so senators waiting to speak on this matter so that they can be seen to be sending money to the counties. But when it comes to the issue of accountability, we are failing. It is not only the county governments that are failing, but Parliament is also failing. It is not only the executive which is failing, but Parliament is the one which is failing. Because we have the power of the purse. But when we have the power of the purse, we play musical chairs because we do not want to be able to be rigid to ensure that when this 10.6 billion is going to Narok County, it clears the entire pending bills. Mr. Speaker, when I was in the mediation committee, I said this, and I strongly believe this, that the most important thing that we can do is that this additional money that we are sending, that money goes to pay pending bills or trade payables. That was issue number one. Issue number two, Mr. Speaker, is to be very strict when it comes to the sending of money from the controller of budget to the counties. We've all been talking about this issue of IFMIS. We've spoken about IFMIS having an end-to-end system whereby there is no fiscal interference. But no one wants to implement that. Everybody wants to make sure that, Mr. Speaker, you've got an IFMIS accountant, you've got your CCM finance, you've got a second authority, so that by the time you've requisitioned money from the control of budget, the list of pending bills that you've sent, and the control of budget under the Constitution releases the money to you because you've demonstrated that first, you budgeted for this money. Second, this is what I'm paying for, and these are the things that we did. Releases, but when the money hits your account, because you need a second authority, you divert that money to pay your friends, to be able to start other projects. So my suggestion was, let us not start any project. And the only people who can help us here is the budget committee. It is only the budget committee that can say, now we are talking about sending this Kara. I don't suppose, and maybe I'll be guided here, Mr. Speaker, I don't suppose that we cannot amend this Kara to include a provision that says pending bills must be the first charge of account. And when a county does not demonstrate that they have paid the trade payables or the pending bills, the controller of budget stops the money. We have to find a way. And I think the control of budget, and I think if you read the law clearly, if you read Article 228, I believe, that talks about the power of the control of budget. We can support this control of budget, not to make life difficult for counties, but to instill fiscal discipline and enhance the fiduciary responsibility. Article 228, Mr. Speaker, Section 5, the controller shall not approve any withdrawal from a public fund unless satisfied that the withdrawal is authorized by law. So I am suggesting something which I think most of you will find it utopian. But if it is the thing that is going to be able to bring fiscal discipline, so be it. Is that we amend this Kara. We amend this Kara and we put a provision that says that unless the pending bills are the first charge of account, the controller shall not withdraw the money. Mr. Speaker, during the mediation, the National Assembly brought the division of revenue. When they brought the division of revenue, they were removing clause 5, which says that whenever there is a shortfall of revenue, the national government bears the shortfall. Why can't we not be ingenious now and say we amend this CARA? And I hope I'm not just speaking to myself, I'm speaking to my colleagues who are listening and trying to internalize what I want them, what can help bring fiscal discipline. We bring a clause in this CARA that says that with the share of revenue, no development will be budgeted for unless the previous development projects have been paid. All of them. That's issue number 1. Number 2, that the pending bills shall be the first charge of account. And when the pending bills are not the first charge of account, the controller budget should not release funds. That is what the Constitution says. It is a matter of interpretation, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, unless we want to continue playing musical chairs, unless we want to continue encouraging people to commit suicide, unless we want to continue encouraging corruption in these countries, we must now completely think outside the box. We must be creative on how we force a fiduciary responsibility. Otherwise, we'll all be here talking. Now my pending bills have gone to 753 to 6.6 billion. I'm glad, Mr. Speaker, that my good friend, Captain Robert, has just walked in. And I want to repeat what I just said so that Captain Robert can be able to hear. I think it's about time that we amend this CARA. Introduce a clause that demands that pending bills become the first charge of account. Number 2, that under Article 228, subsection 5 of the Constitution, which gives power to the controller of budget on releasing funds, that she shall not withdraw that money, send that money to the counties unless it is supported by law. And the law now will be that these are the pending bills. This is what is going to pay. And we stop. The third one we can add into it is that no development, the entire development budget for the next financial year shall not be implemented until the previous financial year have been cleared and have been sorted out. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Transport, under the good leadership of C.S. Churchill, has moved so fast to clearing every pending bill in the road sector. So the bills that they are accumulating now, I think that they are budgeting. In fact, it gets even neater, Mr. Speaker. CARA have got a discipline, fiscal discipline, whereby they will not advertise a road unless they have money. Money has been transferred from Treasury to their accounts. Yes. So they have the money. Why can't we distinguish men and women in this house? Why can't we borrow from that and bring in fiscal discipline? That's the only thing we want. You know, PFM, I've always argued that the PFM Act, you know, should not be static. The PFM Act should be amended based on times. If we do that, Mr. Speaker, there's no reason as to why this country cannot be a first-class world, our country. All of us are happy when we come to Nairobi. We come to Nairobi because most of us here live in our manicured mansions, you know? In fact, I always say that when somebody is elected into office, all of a sudden they become billionaires and they live in Karen. That's why I say I'll never live in Karen, because it appears like in Karen is where all the money, whether ill-gotten or people have worked so hard, is where everybody goes to Karen. In fact, when you meet someone, they say, oh, so you moved to Karen, you live in Karen. Because people have a culture where when you go there and you find the way people are living, you also want to emulate those people. You don't know how they got there. You don't know if it is old money. You just find a few deals. If there is any loophole in the law, you utilize, you actually exploit that loophole so that you too can be able to live like them. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to end by saying the following 3 points. Number one, Narok County and all the other counties, every single county has received more money because of the effort that we put in. The amount of money that we received, which includes the one for Narok County of 297 million, let us start by demonstrating that we care about a fiduciary responsibility, that we want the future generation to be able to find a better country, that we want Narok County also to be developed like Nairobi. Start by paying those SMEs their pending bills. That is issue number one. Number two, let us consider amending this CARA. Let us not be rushed to passing legislation. Let us amend this CARA just like the way the National Assembly was trying to amend the Division of Revenue to introduce a clause that says when there is a shortfall on revenue, we share the burden, county governments and national government. But we knew very well that that was against Article 219 of the Constitution. Let us amend it, make sure that when we leave, because this is the last year before elections, that the money that we send to counties is going to make sense. Because come next year, the money that will pass, the executive will get all its share. Counties will start getting their money maybe in September, something like that, when when there are new governments in place. So the only thing that we can say we'll take home and that we can be judged with is by making sure we develop legislation that will supersede us. Mr. Speaker, today I was eulogizing one of our leaders called the Honorable Lempaka, who was among the first legislators in the East African Legislation Assembly, who passed on from my community. And I said, listening to his story and listening to everyone who eulogized him, I deduced that he was more obsessed with the legacy that he is going to, the impact his legacy is going to have in this country, rather than being obsessed with being famous or being, what do you call it, or glorified. He was obsessed not with the fame, not with the glory, but with the impact that his legacy will leave. Can we please borrow from that leaf? Let us be obsessed by making sure we bring in fiscal discipline to our counties for generations to come. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wakori, Majority Whip.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to